All right, Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
Yes, we are talking about Hakeem Jeffries. So when House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries promised that Kristi Noem would be one of the first called before Congress, which he did this past week, if the Democrats take the majority in 2026, he wasn't just previewing political theater, he was signaling a long overdue accountability moment.
It's my expectation that Kristi Noem will be one of the first people hauled up to Congress shortly after the gavels change hands to get a real understanding for the American people as to this conduct that has taken place, the lack of respect for due process, for the rule of law, the unleashing of masked agents on law-abiding immigrant communities, and the disappearing of people.
Because what we've seen under Noem's watch as Homeland Security Secretary isn't just controversial, it's policy. I mean, it's a collision between power and the Constitution. Listen, the government has every right to deport violent criminals. Everyone's on the same page about that. What we're talking about here is not that. These are families being ripped apart, U.S. citizen children deported to other countries they'd never known, and raids on churches, swap meets, and sidewalks that read less like lawful arrest and more like kidnappings in broad daylight. Armed masked agents storming neighborhoods. It looks less like Law and Order and more like a scene from maybe a dystopian movie, except it's not fiction. It's happening right here. And at the center of it is Secretary Noem, who, when asked to define habeas corpus earlier this year, which, by the way, is a bedrock constitutional right, got it flat out wrong. Let's take a listen.
So, Secretary Noem, what is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to.
Let me stop you, ma'am. Habeas
right
corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
Now, that's not just a slip of the tongue. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of the very principle that protects us all from government overreach. Habeas corpus is the right of a person to challenge their detention. Without it, the government could just lock anyone up indefinitely. Even Abraham Lincoln had to go to Congress before suspending it during the Civil War. Yet somehow, Kristi Noem thinks she can redefine it on the fly. Meanwhile, lawsuits are just piling up. The ACLU and others say these mass raids aren't about justice. They're really about quotas. 3,000 arrests a day demanded from the White House no matter who gets caught in the dragnet. The result, overcrowded dungeon-like detention centers, families denied food, water, and lawyers. That's not just cruel, it's really unconstitutional. And it costs taxpayers millions of dollars also to warehouse people who pose no threat to society. So Jeffries is right. This calls for oversight, not partisan point scoring, but a public examination of what happens when immigration policy is driven by fear, politics, and raw numbers instead of law and due process and human dignity. Because if the government can strip immigrants of their rights today, what's to stop them from doing the same thing to citizens tomorrow? Kristi Noem may soon face Congress, but make no mistake, this is bigger than her. It's about whether America will continue to twist the meaning of justice until it serves whoever holds power, or whether we'll insist that justice in this country still means something. This isn't about Kristi Noem forgetting her civics lesson. It's about whether America still remembers its own. So listen, immigration is President Trump's biggest issue, right? He was winning on the fact that we're going to deport violent criminals and go about that. But as you've seen, and as polls have shown us in the last 7 months, public opinion of how he's going about handling immigration has dramatically swayed.
Has it?
Yeah, actually, there's an Economist YouGov poll from this summer saying 52% of Americans think that President Trump's approach to immigration has been, quote, too harsh. And some of the ways that he's treating people, even going into LA with federal troops, was completely unnecessary, overstepping local government, which is not something that Republicans generally do. There's a lot of ways that he's handling it that, to the American public is not the way that they wanted to see happen.
I don't agree that it's not the way necessarily the American people want to see. I've seen polls showing broad support for exactly what Donald Trump is doing. I find it very interesting that the Democrats' plan, as soon as they have power again, is going to be to do weaponized lawfare, deep state stuff against Kristi Noem. So we're just conceding now that, or I hope liberals are conceding, Democrats are no better than Republicans. It's all the same. Once another party gets into power, they will pursue whatever legal actions they can against all of the members of the previous regime. They'll try to put Donald Trump in prison again, and then Republicans will do that to Democrats, and Democrats will do that to Republicans. I don't think that's good, and I would like to see my Democrats, aspire to something a little bit more lofty.
That's so interesting that you call for that type of lofty aspiration when you don't require that from any Republicans. But we'll just put a pin right there.
Well,
and
Republicans are my party.
I mean, that's literally like they want to. They're doing it in Russiagate investigation for no reason right now, and wasting
for the reason is they tried to jail President Trump over.
They were trying to attach treason to President Obama, which they know is extreme far shot and never happening, and so they're wasting the same amount of time. But this is actually legitimate to look into how or whether or not we're following constitutional law when we're deporting and detaining migrants, and if we're doing it constitutionally or based on quotas, and if we're following everyone's due process, because we've seen multiple incidents where we were not. And it's not a Lindsey thing. This is not a Democratic thing. This is also a Republican thing. This is a Joe Rogan thing. He brought it up to Anna Paulina Luna on his podcast last week saying, great, deport my landscaper, basically arguing how Americans feel even where he stands, people who voted for President Trump saying this was not the intention. It's one thing to deport criminals and everyone you said you were going to deport. It's another thing to just straight up willy-nilly just try to get everyone out of the country, because there's multiple businesses and people that voted for President Trump that don't think that that is the strategy and the way forward. You could talk about farmers, people who own farmland. There's multiple industries that are going to suffer because migrants are just being deported in the way that President Trump is doing it. So when you look at those polls and wonder why there's such mixed reaction on how he's going about it, it's because what was promised is that, yeah, get these criminals out of here. That's a pretty American thing. Everyone can understand that. But on the other side of that is just sweepingly get everyone out of here and do it without following the Constitution. That's an issue and should be an issue regardless of party.
Well, I think we should follow the Constitution. I don't think we should deport landscapers, although there are a lot of Trump supporters who want everyone who's here illegally to go, come hell or high water, and it should be done in a constitutional manner, in a manner that abides by due process. Although oftentimes due process is not some kind of paper shield that means you can't be deported or you can't suffer some adverse criminal action. It just means there has to be a process. For instance, in the case of every liberal's favorite illegal immigrant, Abrego Garcia, there was due process. The end of the process was he had to be deported back to his native country. Now, things should be done according to the precepts of the Constitution and according to what the Supreme Court says. I have no doubt the government is overreaching in a variety of ways that trouble me as a civil libertarian. I don't want to see mass deportations of otherwise lawful people, but just because it's happening doesn't mean it's illegal or violates some. You say quotas. I mean, there's a mandate clearly to deport a massive number of illegal immigrants. They don't have a right legally to be in this country. They have a right against being prosecuted, incarcerated, having their speech rights violated, but being in the country is not something that that right does not exist, and their rights against the government are a little bit murkier than the rights of citizens or rights of even non-citizens in a criminal action.
And I think just to bring Kristi Noem before Congress and just ask the questions about how they're going about this and how they're following the Constitution is not a bad thing. We talk about what Congress doesn't do or, making it too partisan. But I think this is a real question to ask, because there are people like the Joe Rogans of the world and his millions of followers that are saying, hey, seems like a real overreach. And so that's the whole point of checks and balances. And what Congress should do is say, are you guys overreaching here? Are you outside of the confines of our law that we have set up? And then check it from there. And I think that is not a bad thing for him to say, but just feels partisan because it came from Hakeem Jeffries.
Well, we'll see if they ever get power over Congress again, and they can do exactly that. They can have another committee hearing. So many committee hearings, so little time. Welcome back to Rising. All right, Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
We are talking about the vice president. So VP J.D. Vance has been in office since January, and already he's racked up more vacation days than most Americans could dream of in a decade. The man who built the brand railing against, quote, elites has basically become one, living like the very people he claimed to stand against. His latest trip is a summer holiday in the Cotswolds, the region of England nicknamed, quote, the Hamptons of the UK. Now, Vance rented a sprawling manor that goes for about $10,000 a week. Between his motorcades clogging those tiny roads and the protests that followed him across the pond, it's safe to say that his family getaway got more press than privacy. But this isn't an isolated incident. This is vacation number 8 this year. I mean, Italy, India, Nantucket, Disneyland, Vermont, Greenland, wherever you can name, he's basically been. Some of those vacations he even labeled as, quote, official business, meaning taxpayers footed the bill, like in March when he flew with the second lady to Greenland during the height of Trump's fixation with the territory. The trip was so poorly received by Greenland's government that it was cut short from a multi-day trip to a 3-hour trip. Imagine flying all that way for less time than most people spend at a barbecue. The only thing that came from that trip were some Instagram-ready photos of Vance and his wife in the snow. Then there's Disneyland, which he shut down for his family. Then there's a $2,500 Michelin-starred dinner in San Diego. And who could forget his birthday trip, kayaking, when the military literally raised the level of the Ohio River just to smooth out his paddling conditions. That's not just elite, that's emperor-level elite. The bigger question is, how does he have so much time off? I mean, most Americans can't even get 2 consecutive weeks approved without basically begging their boss. Yet the sitting vice president has managed to disappear almost every month since taking office. And for context, Mike Pence barely took personal trips in his first 6 months, and Kamala didn't take a single personal vacation in hers, especially because it was coming right on the heels of COVID. Meanwhile, families here and at home are being crushed under the weight of rising costs. Groceries, healthcare, gas, everyday basics are becoming luxuries. And while Americans are forced to do more with less, their vice president seems determined to do less with more. The optics matter when your right-hand man is Donald Trump, the guy who wants to convince the working class America that he's their champion. And you're jet-setting across the globe on lavish retreats. It doesn't scream solidarity. It screams out of touch. So as the bills pile up and medical benefits shrink because of the big, beautiful bill, J.D. Vance may be hard to find. He's not in Washington, not in Ohio, but likely on vacation again. The message is clear. While everyday Americans are fighting to make ends meet, J.D. Vance is fighting to make his next reservation.
Whew. Oh, Lindsey.
Oh, this is so, and I love to travel. I'm not hating on that.
I know, you're gone every weekend. Well, you're in between. You don't live here. You're going back and forth.
But I'm also not the vice president. Happily not the vice president. So, it's just like there's so much going on in the world. And he talks about people being so elite and how you want to take down all these people. Like, this is part of the MAGA platform that unrelatable people, Trump's that relatable billionaire, is just like you and I. Like, this is not relatable.
Vance comes from nothing. Trump was never a genuine working class person. Vance is. Vance, I've read his memoir. We all know his origin story.
So you paying for his trip to Greenland so he can parade around and take Instagram pictures because nobody invited him. It was not an official trip. Official trips look like this in government. Leaders of that country or that space or that territory invite you there and you have an official meeting and it's organized. You don't go tour the snow and take a picture with your wife and taxpayers pay for it. This is what's been happening lately.
I don't want taxpayers paying for vacations.
Thank you.
Or political figures, obviously. But if they, of their own money, are going on vacation, I don't care. Just as I never cared, and I know conservatives used to make a whole thing about this, please take a cane and yank me off the stage if you ever hear me say, I can't believe Barack Obama's golfing again. I don't care. They can have weekends on occasion like anybody else. I don't care.
He's taken 8 vacations in 7 months. We're not talking about...
His job is to be the preside over the Senate, and the Senate is not in session because...
No, I didn't say this summer. I said in his first 7 months in office. You understand what I'm saying?
Again, some of those things you classified as vacations were
in Europe right now,
trips.
he had 1 meeting. He's in the Cotswold vacation, and he had 1 meeting. And is this a diplomatic trip? Do you mind that you paid for his flight, his first class accommodation? I mean, his entire plane to fly over there to have a vacation in the Cotswold, and he had 1 official meeting? This is what I'm saying. Like, it is not relatable when the everyday American... Actually, no, I have stats. So a Morning Consult poll said 6 out of 10 Americans say the Trump administration is driving up their costs with some of these new policies. They're directly blaming President Trump and his administration. And the second in charge of his administration is on vacation. $10,000 vacation for a week. So if he's there for more than 1 week.
If he pays for it, I don't care. But we shouldn't pay for it. You're right about that.
But the point is, it's unrelatable. Don't you want to be in touch with the people? You argue all the time that Democrats were out of touch. How much more out of touch can you look by painting the office in actual gold flakes, which President Trump did a few weeks ago, and elevating it to the step?
I don't
look
care
like
about
a
their
lobby.
Vacations as long as they're not. I cared about their vacations or their dining at nice restaurants when they were forcing everyone else to lock themselves in their own homes and never go outside because of COVID. Then I cared. But other than that, I don't really care. I think honestly, I'd rather politicians take more vacations because the less work they're doing, coming up with bad ideas to harm our economy even further is good.
So optics mean nothing to you. I mean, like he might as well change his title from VP to VPTO. I don't
VP
like
doesn't do very
it.
much.
Doesn't it, he does what he doesn't do very much. You and Ronna McDaniel, we just had her on the other day, said that he is next in line to probably be the Republican nominee for president.
Oh,
okay, so you cannot be vacationer in chief. You should be active right now, especially when there are several wars going on that we are very close
Joe
to tied
Biden
to. Without,
was
I don't know.
mentally on
That
vacation
can't
for
work
the
anymore.
entire presidency.
That can't work anymore. He's not president, and that's talking about the past. We talked about this if your mom ever told you about spilled milk. Don't make me bring that back up, right? That's done. It's done. It's on the floor. You can't drink it anymore. We're talking about real life right now. President Trump is president and his VP is constantly on vacation. And so it should be a problem to the American taxpayers and voters who were promised that this Russia war would end at day one, who were promised that the economy would be soaring definitely by 7 months in, who were promised many things, but all they're getting are a higher deficit, which makes no sense if you're a fiscal conservative. All they're getting is possible medical benefits cut with the big, beautiful bill. And all they're getting is tax cuts that won't even affect the everyday American, only people that are in a much higher echelon than most people in America. So what are they getting? This is why Republicans are uncomfortable and have been advised to not go to their hometowns during the summer break
big, beautiful
and
bill is
speak about the
unpopular.
big, beautiful
Well,
bill.
I'm against the bill.
Well, that's one of the biggest pieces of
it.
legislation that they have going on from the Republican Party. So
Yes, it's
if you
terrible
can't
bill.
speak about that, then what are you doing for the American people? You're on vacation, but no one else can afford to be. That's kind of ridiculous and out of touch. Come on, Robbie. We don't have to agree on everything, but you're on vacation. American people can't afford vacation. Connect the dot for me.
Maybe I'm out of touch here. Viewers, if anyone who's not just some rabid anti-Vance partisan actually cares about this,
I like
which
Vance.
is their
I think he's
opinion,
fine.
Then, please chime in. You can write to me at I don't really care.
Please
email
bomb Robbie with emails telling him that.
Just let me know that Robbie, you're out of touch, elitist. I don't know. I hope people take vacations when they want to take vacations.
That's what I'm saying. Americans mostly can't afford.
What's about the policies?
Vacation.
Yes,
they cannot afford vacation right now.
We should implement policies that allow for the price of things to go down. That's why I'm against the tariffs. That's why I'm against regulations. It's why I want low taxes. I want people to keep more of their own money and be employed and have good jobs and be able to take vacation and that
comes when a president really works hard on fixing the economy and doesn't put things in place that are going to
I rarely
inflate it.
take vacations because I miss the viewers and you too much.
And me?
To go on, and it's a little hard. So it's like leaving your child is away on his first school trip or something. Like, oh my God, was the show okay while I'm not there?
Yeah.
Also, bad things happen every time I go on vacation.
Well, I hope
get into that.
Well, Vance maybe can take a page out of your
know.
playbook. Maybe Vance can take a page out of your playbook and not leave the American people wondering, is everything okay?
Perhaps. Welcome back to Rising. Lindsay, what's in your lens today?
I've got a lot to say as usual. So nobody's getting under MAGA's skin quite like California Governor Gavin Newsom. And it's not just comical, it's actually effective. Every cable news channel is talking about him, weekly if not daily. Newsom, who many believe is a likely contender for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2028, has taken a page straight from Donald Trump's playbook. He's leaning into Trump's bombastic posting style and serving it back to him stunt for stunt. I mean, his trolling includes a Photoshop image of Mount Rushmore with his face on it, a mock-up of himself as a king on the cover of Time magazine, and even an AI-generated image of Newsom surrounded by Tucker Carlson, the late Hulk Hogan, and Kid Rock before writing in all caps that he actually hates Kid Rock. It sounds silly, and that's the point. The deja vu effect is meant to hold a mirror up to the Trump world, showing Republicans exactly how absurd their tactics look from the outside in. And let's be honest, I think it's working. The numbers back it up. CNN's chief data analyst, Harry Enton, and also Robbie's favorite pollster, says the X account for Newsom's press office has seen a 450% increase in followers since June. Google searches for Newsom, well, those are up 1,300% since June and 500% just since August 1st. Those are the kinds of surges you don't see without some traction. And here's the deeper story behind the strategy. In a recent interview with Fox 11 Los Angeles, Newsom explained the moment he decided to put his foot down against Trump.
I think it connects here in LA and the fires. And how he was completely misrepresenting the facts, misinformation, disinformation. Elon Musk was piling on as well.
You were really angry that he spoke to you then. And I've never seen you angrier than that.
Yeah, because I've never seen anything like it. In the middle of emergency, all the lies, all the misrepresentations, all the untruths, and they became gospel and they were spread around the world. And it was a big wake-up call. And we got back on our feet and we got back on the offense.
And he wasn't done there.
And then when the National Guard was federalized, what the hell is going on? You saw ICE out here today. You know what that is? That is a preview for things to come. Mark my word. I said this a couple months ago with the National Guard. I said that was a preview for the rest of the country. That's exactly what happened in Washington, D.C. That's going to continue to happen across this country unless we're successful. Yes, I've changed. The facts have changed. We need to change, and we need to stand up to this authoritarian.
Now, people can argue that Newsom is lowering himself by mocking the president, but one thing you can't deny is that it's been effective. And that's not just Democrats talking. Even Steve Bannon is giving him credit. Bannon's whole political quote, if you look at the Democratic Party, he's at least getting up there, and he's trying to intimidate a Trumpian vision of fighting, right? He looks like the only person in the Democratic Party who's organizing a fight they can feel that they actually can win. He went on to say, quote, people in the MAGA movement and the America First movement should start paying attention to this because it's not going to go anywhere. They're only going to get more intense. So here's the thesis. Gavin Newsom isn't just trolling Donald Trump, he's stress testing a strategy. And the numbers, the buzz, and even Trump's allies all suggest that it's working. For years, Democrats have struggled to figure out how to fight Trump on his own turf. Newsom might have just cracked the code.
Think so, hey?
Yes, gruesome Newsom, like you say.
Look.
Don't sigh. Don't sigh. It's funny.
He's putting his name in. Is it? No, it's not funny.
What are you saying?
It's not
People are
taco
laughing.
fun.
It's
You
not
laugh.
funny.
I don't mean this as a criticism. You laugh
At
very
anything?
easily.
No,
you are a fun-filled, joyous person. My heart and soul are black and dark and angry.
I am easily tickled, but taco was funny. After airing it several times on our show, I finally laughed because even, Janine Pirro was behind Trump laughing when it first came out and a reporter asked about taco. So why can't I laugh and Janine Pirro on his staff can laugh?
You are allowed to laugh. Gavin Newsom is getting himself a lot of attention, and getting yourself attention does help you. It's a name recognition game. I always say this, that people, or pundits especially, because we pundits are paying such close attention to everyone in politics at all times, we often miss the fact that people who don't are not paid to consume political content constantly, don't know all of these characters as intricately as well as we do.
Right.
In the same way that I don't know, how to perform brain surgery because it's not my job. Brain surgeons know how to do that. I follow sports not very closely at all. I don't know all the people in sports the way sports commentators do. It's that kind of effect. So name recognition does really help you because a lot of the voters don't have time to pay as close attention to politics. God bless them. Some days I wish I was one of them. So Gavin Newsom getting his name out there, being constantly covered in the news for these antics, I think will certainly help him.
And also help the Democratic
help
Party
him get the nomination.
find a response to Trump. There has been a criticism outside of connect back with the everyday working American, connect back with your constituents, which people felt that they've been out of touch. Also, do something has been the other criticism. Say something, respond. Why would you sit back for years and not codify Roe v. Wade, but then whine and complain
He's not
that
doing things. He's tweeting.
Well, no, he actually is pushing forward a vote on redistricting, unlike your boys in Texas who are just pushing it down the pike without asking the voters what they want. He actually is asking people in California, would you like to move forward with these new maps, and allowing them to put it on the ballot on November 4th. He's going about it, the way that we want our government to be run, which is of the people, for the people, and not just of whatever political party thinks it suits them best to get 5 seats in order to win the midterm, because policies won't allow you to win them.
No.
No. See, you do this every time. No. I was talking to my mom the other day, and she's like, sometimes Robbie just is like, I don't have to say that. You can't tell me to do that. That's not a legitimate
You can't tell me what to do.
You have to respond here. What say you? Is Newsom not effective? I brought up Enton on purpose to bring up the fact that his Harry Enton on purpose to bring up the fact that his numbers are growing so rapidly.
I can see that. He might very well be the next Democratic nominee. I think he's in the top 3 most likely ones, for sure.
Effective communication style. If you like Trump's, you would compare both of those?
I'm not like a warped partisan Republican.
Fight and fire with
Everything
fire.
Democrats do is, especially in terms of political tactics, I still dislike his policies intensely. I would not want to live in a state that is governed by him. God forbid I have to live in a country that is run by him. That would be a cruel fate. But for all I know, that's the fate I will suffer in 2028.
Well, you know, it's so crazy. We're all okay, and a lot of people felt the same way that you feel about living under anything that Newsom does. The same way if President Trump won a second term, and look, we are surviving.
All I know,
look at us.
I guess,
except we just have federal authorities all over D.C. But aside from that,
shut down all of the schools, lock us in our homes, force us to. He would outsource governance to the most far left radical health department, and then he would go get dinner at the French Laundry.
You know what? A lot of things happened during the pandemic that caused people to get in a little bit of a spiral, get obsessive about it because we had so much time. And I think that you are a little bit too closely connected to this COVID story. You have to let it go. We're 5 years out. You know, you're alive. You're lucky to be here.
I will never.
So many people didn't have the opportunity to just continue breathing. You are alive and healthy and well. You are living a great life. And so you cannot just worry about how you can blame Dr. Fauci every day that you have this mask off your face. You have to free yourself from that.
That's fine. I'm a single issue voter. COVID. I will vote only and on the basis of which candidate I think would be less likely to do all of those horrible things again if a pandemic hit us.
A pandemic happens once every how often? Like, it was a once in a lifetime situation.
It's not going to happen
scheduled.
Again.
I know, but if you look at history, Spanish flu, if you look at historians, this was probably expected to come. Like, usually big waves, pandemic,
Dr. Fauci is doing his best
happen.
to make sure another one happens very soon. So I'm not going to...
You're going down conspiracy theory rabbit hole. I want to talk facts, Robbie. Okay. Dr. Fauci is not trying to make another pandemic happen.
Well,
nobody wants that to happen.
We're having a guest later today, and we'll talk about it.
It's going to be 2 against 1.
For how this all went down.
Fine.
All right, Lindsay, what's in your lens today?
We are talking more about the Smithsonian, which I know that we talked a lot about yesterday. So President Trump recently described Smithsonian museums as, quote, out of control for emphasizing, in his view, quote, how bad slavery was. He's accused cultural institutions of rewriting our nation's history, claiming these efforts, quote, undermine America's achievements by casting our founding principles as inherently racist, sexist, oppressive, or otherwise irredeemably flawed. But let's just pause there real quick, because history is not a highlight reel. It's the full story, the triumphs and the traumas. Trying to sanitize historical facts is actually anti-democratic. And here's the irony. In 2017, after visiting the National Museum of African American History and Culture, Trump had nothing but praise. Don't take my word for it, take his.
It's a great honor to be here. This was some beautiful morning, and what a job they've done, like few others have been able to do.
And no, he didn't stop there. Watch this.
This museum is a beautiful tribute to so many American heroes. Heroes like Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, Rosa Parks, the Greensboro students, and the African American Medal of Honor recipients, among so many other really incredible heroes. It's amazing to see. We did a pretty comprehensive tour, but not comprehensive enough. So, Lonnie, I'll be back.
He's going to be back. Wait, there's more.
This tour was a meaningful reminder of why we have to fight bigotry, intolerance, and hatred in all of its very ugly forms.
Well, back then he understood that America's greatness cannot be separated from its struggles. Exhibits like the one at the Smithsonian take years of work, and they're actually guided by scholars and curators who present the history that's both honest and complete. So what changed? Because slavery is not a footnote, it's actually the foundation of this entire country, literally. By 1840, enslaved labor made the U.S. the world's top cotton producer, enriching both southern plantations, but also all the northern industries. Enslaved people built the roads, canals, and railroads that connected our entire nation. Their forced labor created and concentrated wealth, cementing disparities that ripple through still today. But some people still say, that was so long ago. What does that have to do with me today? Well, everything. Because slavery denied black families the chance to build and accumulate wealth. Meanwhile, white families benefited from programs like the Homestead Act and the GI Bill, which were not equally applied to black Americans. Wealth, like trauma, passes down. That's why today the average black household has less than 1/5 of the wealth of a white household. And practices like redlining and unequal access to capital continue to keep that gap nice and wide. So we can hold two truths at once. America is a place of immense opportunity, and America is still living in the long shadow of slavery, Jim Crow, and systemic racism. To ignore that reality isn't patriotism, it's just denial. And the way forward isn't to sweep it under the rug, but to have leaders who fully comprehend how slavery and the racism that followed it still echo through society today, and who are committed to doing the actual hard work to finally rectify it all. And yet, since returning to office, Trump has shifted. He signed executive orders limiting how Black history can be taught. He's rolled back civil rights protections. He's attacked DEI initiatives. He's restored Confederate names to bases and monuments. Not the same guy who once said this about the tour of the National Museum of African American History and Culture, right?
I'm deeply proud that we now have a museum that honors the millions of African American men and women who built our national heritage, especially when it comes to faith, culture, and the unbreakable American spirit.
That same person now dismisses the examination of slavery in a museum as being, quote, too negative. So I have to ask this about, is this all about his cognitive health? Did he not mean what he said in 2017? Or is this an intentional attempt to reshape the story of America and erase the uncomfortable truths that only the glossy parts are left over? And if that is the goal, then let me be clear, that's not patriotism, that is propaganda. Because the real American story, the one that makes us strong, is not about covering up our wounds, it's about confronting them, healing from them, and building a country where the next generation, like my daughter, can stand taller because we had the courage to all tell the truth.
DEI, though?
Yeah, because
that's what we're trying to purge from these institutions.
No, I think I named a lot of things. I think when a president doesn't acknowledge that, we'll start with the actual story at hand, which is the museum and how slavery was too overdrawn, overblown, whatever the words he used in that museum. Saying that what he said in 2017 and coming back with this now makes absolutely no sense. Either you were moved then or you were a liar then. Which one was it? And so his actions as of late, like restoring Confederate monuments, trying to get rid of curriculums and programs and school books that teach about, Black history in different ways that he doesn't like. It's not an objective response, right? We need to understand and learn some of this trauma to experience how this resilience came about, resilience. And when we talk about the civil rights movement, that doesn't happen without slavery. We don't need a civil rights movement unless we had slavery. We don't have systemic racism and then a civil rights movement, right? It's all connected. Like nothing happens. We don't have a Black president and the triumph in that moment without experiencing all that this country's been through. We don't have wealth in this country without building it on the foundation of slavery. So when we talk about all that he's doing to try to act like we're past that or so far past the point where systemic racism still affects us, which is why we need diversity, equity, and inclusion, because people were excluded largely out of these good old boys clubs based on systemic principles. So that is what I'm talking about. When he's skipping over the conversation about why this is still affecting us all, which is why I broke down how this is still affecting us all and weaving through our society today.
Everything that happened is still affecting everyone in all contexts. What do you?
That's the point.
We ended obviously slavery. We ended the mistreatment of Black people that followed the slavery period. We did civil rights, as you said. We have gotten rid of all of the abjectly discriminatory, racially discriminatory policies of our government and also of private businesses by law. So what is there?
Right, and we're going in government agencies right now and taking out departments that directly affect, making sure that we have equal environments. Naturally, people are not going to choose the right thing and say, oh, I want diversity in this office, which is why programs around diversity were created, because you want to see more people that reflect society. Naturally, people were ostracized from institutions and situations, which is why HBCUs were created, which is why we have this society that was divided. Separatism wasn't that long ago. It's still, grew up in Long Island. It's still extremely segregated. And so we still are growing past some of our pains, which is the country we aim to be, the country we strive to be in our Constitution is somewhere where everyone's treated equally, but there's still multiple ways where people aren't. My parents tried to get a loan for their house and were denied by multiple banks. I'm not sure what your parents' experience were, but simply they couldn't fathom anything else besides they were two people of color because they had incomes, jobs. I mean, they broke the story down to me. So that was not that long ago.
That's
so
illegal.
What I'm saying is...
But that's illegal now.
But it happens often. Trump discriminated in his housing practices. It happens often and in our lifetime, which is what I'm saying. We need to rectify this, and we need a president that understands that we still have many ways that we need to rectify this.
My friend, Steven Pinker, who's a professor at Harvard University, writes a lot of great books, said recently, I thought this was a great line, that, well, I support diversity, equity, and inclusion, but much like the Holy Roman Empire that was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire, it involves neither diversity, equity, or inclusion, as instead just a kind of thought police to punish people who disagree with you, particularly in the academic context. In the business context, in the educational context, I usually see it as seminars that have a political agenda. It's not about making, of course we all want diversity, we want more people to feel included. It's about having fewer people feel included in practice, and about just doing discriminatory, exactly what you're complaining about, discriminatory hiring and admissions processes.
No, I don't think so. I think it's about equaling the playing field. And the equity part is the biggest part of that conversation. And everybody who doesn't understand that, we don't have a lot of time, should look up what equity actually means, and then they would understand what we're asking for, not to take a spot.
It means white and Asian people are
No, it doesn't.
likely
It
to
means
get
that
admitted.
no, it doesn't. It means that they're starting from the same beginning, and so that they can match up with opportunities. It means given the same resources, we can all move forward in the same way and achieve the American dream in the same way.
People aren't exactly equal.
Yeah, but
Nobody
that's why pulling people up who didn't have the opportunity to access some of the resource and putting them in places like colleges and institutions will provide them the same opportunity for the American dream based on systemic reasons why they weren't able to get there in the first place. This is what I'm saying, why equity is important, because everybody is not on the same playing field, right?
You lost me.